na mukadde takisobola. So abavubuka kibakakatako okuba ku mwanjo gw'olutalo olukyusa eggwanga, si kwogera bwogezi nga bwe nkiraba ennaku zino. Mulembe gwaffe, mulembe gwange okola kinga owangalira mu kkomera. Mulembe gwange mu kkomera ng'onoobeera muno omulembe. So mbayita buyisi, mbasoomooza basituke abavubuka, tulwane tutaase ensi yaffe. Lwaki tebajumbidde abantu kye tubabuulira? Okusooka nakugambye nti n'abangi n'okubiwulira tebakola ki? Tebabiwulira, kubanga waliwo ebisenge ebizimbibwa okubagaana okuwulira. Amalediyo agamu tetusobola gagenda ku, in fact ebweru w'e Kampala tosobola genda ku lediyo oyogerereko bino byenjogera, tekisoboka. Mubadde mubalaba nga batusika mu malediyo n'abasirikale, temwogera. Tojja kukola lukuŋŋaana bakukkirize. Nkugambye ne lw'omu nnyumba terukkirizibwa. Walabye banaffe abanuupu ababadde bagenze ekyenjojo bavuddeyo ku migo. So eyo nsonga esooka nti amaloboozi gennyini agandibadde gategeeza abantu ne bategeera, tetulina mikisa egimala okugatuusa. Infakt ne rediyo eza wano, nze ku rediyo yamwe ekyabbasa nakomba ddi okukyazibwayo ate nga yeyogerera nnyo wano. Lwaki? Kubanga tebalina license. Tebalina rediyo kyabbasa, ye rediyo ekola mu ggwanga lino nga terina license. Kuva lwe bagiggalawo. Lwaki? Babagambe bw'okyaza Besigye otulinde. So okutuusa message si kyangu. Yensonga lwaki kyembategeezezza kikakata ku buli omu, si ffeffeka nti otubuuze lwaki bye mwogera tebabijjumbira. Nawe obyogere. Yes. So eyo yembeera nti tebaagala message etuuke. Na bino bye twogera mujja kubijja wano mu mastation gammwe, ba gatekeeper gye bali. Nabyo tebijja kufuluma, mubikutte mubitutte, naye tebijja kufuluma nga bwe mukoze eki, nga bwe mubikutte, kubanga waliyo ba gatekeeper abaabali. So amaloboozi gaffe tegatuuka. Ne bwe biranga bye tukola actual activities, mulaba ekibaawo bwe tuba ne activity, namwe bwe mujja okukapturinga ebigenda mu maaso, namwe mufuuka balabe, kubanga mwagala kutuusa bye batayagala bikole ki, bituuke. Nalabye wano munnange Isano ne Kitimbo nga babafuuyira ng'ebiyenje nga balina akagora aluwa babafuuyira ng'ebiyenje. So that is eyo ensonga ekola ki esooka. Ensonga ey'okubiri nti abantu baffe era kye bagezaako okukola babazimbamu okutya. Omulimu gwe bakola gwonna gwa kuzimba okutya mu bantu. ne be bakuba oba be bookya paasi ne balaga paasi nga bwe bamwokeza oba ne balaga kakwenza nga bwe bamukuba emiggo bakiraga olabeeyo ogambe nti bino tebisoboka. Yensonga lwaki naffe batulugunya abakulembeze. Bw'olaba nga bankuba nga bakola ki ogambe Besigye oba mukoledde bwe batenze. So abantu bawangalira mu kutya. Ekigoba okutya kutegeera nti abatiisatiisa balinga semufu. Semufu gwe bateeka mu nnimiro olowooze nti kino kya mutaawaana bw'obanga otidde n'ojja n'okola bw'oti nakyo olaba kikola bwe kiti kyo kiyimiridde wamu naye kubanga otidde bw'omuvingamu nakyo olaba kikola ki n'ogamba nti navudde ddala naye bw'okisemberera ogenda kusanga nga bisanja byereere ng'ebisanja bya movement. So okwekiririzaamu tulina okukuzimba mu bantu baffe bamanye okusooka okufa ffenna tugenda kola ki kufa. Ojja kufa musujja, ojja kufa boda, ojja kufa ki, ojja kufa kino, ojja kufa n'obwavu butta abantu nabo. So waakiri fa ng'olina kyokola ki kyokola kitegeerekeka. Nakugambye nze nava mu ddwaliro, nze nalina omulimu ogunsasula bulungi nnyo, eddwaliro n'endita n'engenda mu nsiko. Gwatalina mulimu olinze eki? Ekibadde kisembayo abadoga. So reset kyetugamba nti ekizibu ekiriwo ekyokuwamba eggwanga ekikimalawo kumalawo obuwambi bwaki bw'eggwanga. So abaliwambye balina kulitta, tulyoke tulizimbe buto nga bwe twagala. Balina kulitta, si kugamba nti banange tukyusizaamu simanyi tutaddewo IGG anoonyereze oba tutaddewo kino oba tutaddewo kiri nga bigenda mu maaso. Yensonga lwaki tewali n'omuntu n'omu mu Uganda eyandibadde atunuulira Muhoozi ti Muhoozi ajja kuleeta enkyukakyuka. Byonna ebiriwo birina okuvaawo tuzimbe ki ekintu ekipya nga Kenya bwe yakola. Kenya yayita mu transition nekola ssemateeka wa abantu. Of course bakyayina ebizibu naye batambuddeko, naye embeera eyo bagirwanirira okugyawo one party state. Moi yali ataddewo embeera mu Kenya nga pate emu yokka yekirizibwa, endala tezikola ki tezikirizibwa. Kyasooka ne kimenyebwawo kyonna ne bakola transition ne babeera ne government empya. So na kino bwe kirina okubeera tusobola okuteesa ku transition. Ffe tetugaananga kuteesa ku transition, naye abajja okuteesa ku transition bategeere nti tetuteesa mu kukyusa mu movement byekola. Nedda, transition yakulaba nti enkola yonna eriwene ey'okuwamba eggwanga ekola ki evaawo tuteese ku Uganda empya, kubanga nabo bannayuganda ne mu Uganda empya bajja kukola ki bajja kubeeramu, naye nga obuyinza mu Uganda empya bujja kuba buyisibwa butambuzibwa bulala. Ensonga lwaki na kino kyenkugambye nti nze sijja kunoonya oba kukkiriza omulimu. Abakozi mu gavumenti empya gye twagala bajja kuba bakozi baffe, si bakama baffe. They must be servants. Ekizibu ky'eggwanga lino nti abandi badde ba servant be bafuuka ba master, abandi badde ba master ffe twafuuka ki ba servants. Kati amaanyi amatono gali eno mu bantu okuddamu okufuuka bannannyini ggwanga gye tulina okwongera amaanyi, si mu bakozi ba mirimu. Omukozi w'emirimu bw'abanga agikoze bubi olina okubanga olina obuyinza obukola ki obumugoba. So eno gye twetaaga kuzimba amaanyi agakozesa abakozi bakole kye twagala. Omukyalo oyo yabadde abaagala okuteesaganya ne gavumenti nakugambye nti tetulina mutawaana naffe kuteesaganya ne gavumenti, naye tetwagala kuteesa ku kintu kirala kyonna okujjako okulaba nti obuwambe bwe bateekawo bukola ki, buvaawo. So tetusobola kwogera nabo nga tuli nabo, batuula wali ne tuteesa ngeri ki gye bakola ki, gye bafuluma n'ekikola ki, nekiddako. So tosobola kugamba nti ogenze kuteesa nabo simanyi mukyusa amateeka. Amateeka si kyekizibu, kubanga amateeka tegasobola kukola mu nsi eri mu buwambe, agaliwo tegakola. Kati oyagala bakyuse bateekewo amateeka, ani anaagateeka mu nkola? Oba olaba muhoozi awambye eggwanga n'atambula nga bw'ayagala, musirikale biki, alina n'abamukuuma. Kati nalabye n'akatambi akagamba nti alina amagye Kongo gamulwanirira mu bumenyi bw'amateeka obuyitirivu. Kati gweoyagala kukyusa amateeka, kiki ekinaawaliriza amateeka ago okukola? So obuyinza bwe bulina okukyuka, si mateeka. Buyinza bulina okukyuka. Ekyokubiri wagambye amabaati, nakugambye nti n'ebigafaako nze sibitunuulira nnyo, kubanga bano ba pickpockets, ababbi ba mu nsawo, basazi ba nsawo. Kati abasazi b'ensawo sikyekize nakati gye bali mu tawuni bangi abaagala okwebeezaawo, nabano kyekimu. Nagambye babba nabo bafune sente ez'okugenda mu auction. Kyekibaleetera okubba. Of course gwe bakwata akangavulwe nga bwekikola ki, nga bwekyetagisa omulala at least atye, naye si kyekijja kumalawo ki ekizibu kino.
Namakumbi
ekyasoose kyabadde naye ekibuuzo kyabadde ki? Si kyogedde nga nziramu ono. Okay. Ekyokubiri okay. So okusooka akalulu mu ggwanga lino tekatambula nga kalulu oba koyita election. Akalulu akagenda mu maaso kakugula. Mu kifo ky'okuba ne election tuba ne auction. Ayina sente enyingi yatwala, ayina emundu enyingi yatwala. So mu mbeera bwetyo abaagala okuyita mu kalulu bonna balina okuba ababbi, era abali mu palamenti eno gy'olaba bonna babbi, kubanga banoonya sente ezinaakola ki, ezinaabaza. Okusooka basasula sente empitirivu okukola ki, okujja. Era bwe babeerawo bagezaako kyonna ekisoboka kukuŋŋaanya sente ze banazaayo mu auction. Yensonga lwaki teri ayina n'omusimaamu mu palamenti omwo, kubanga aba ayagala kwogera kino ne bagamba nti ate waliwo kiri wali oyo n'asirikira awo. So katale parliament katale kakulamuza ate nga bateekwa buli yenna kati agenda mu kalulu alina kugenda yeetisse ttaani yaki yessente kati bw'omala okuyitamu olina okutegeka ttaani endala eneekuzaayo ate si ekuzaayo yokka na wano mu makati olina okubanga abalonzi bonna kubanga babafuula baavu mu buli kimu buli afa owa palamenti yagula sanduuko yatambuza mayiti buli alwala yali mu ddwaliro okunoonya eddagala era ensonga lwaki ba MP bagula ne ambulance tegwandibadde mulimu gwa MP naye yeddwaliro lya constituency mafuta gagenda mu ambulance alina okugabba yes kubanga omusala gwe nezo owulira nti nyingi miliyoni 3 bwagenda kuzitematemamu mu ebyo abafudde abakoze ekibi tezisobola kubaako kyezikola so alina kuba mubbi yenkola yonna ne mwami Museveni nakugambye ekimuleseewo kubba kujjako nti ezizazitwala nkalu kuva mu Bank of Uganda baziyisa ne mu budget nti za classified ezebi ebyekyama mu COVID batwala sente ez'ekyama mu State House obuwumbi bwa dola zagenda mu State House eyo bwakyama mu COVID ekyama ekiri mu State House kibaaki so enkola ya gavumenti yonna ya bubbi Uganda tefunanga nkola ey'obubbi n'obunyazi mu gavumenti ng'eno ebaddewo okumala emyaka gino kumpyana tebeerangawo yensonga lwaki eggwanga liri mu mbeera nga gye lirimu olwaleero sakizeemu okay you see embeera eno okukyuka tulina okukola ebintu bisatu ekisooka kwe kutegeeza abannansi ne bategeera ne bakkiriza ne basituka ne beekolamu omulimu okubategeeza okwo kwe kukyalemeseddwa nakati okukolebwa ogenda ku leediyo ne bakusikayo oyagala kukola lukungaana ebweru tebajja kukkiriza oyagala kukola lukungaana mu nyumba tebajja kukkiriza naye abalala abamenyi b'amateeka ffe tubikolera mu mateeka omumenyi w'amateeka nambeemu mwami Muhoozi General Muhoozi atakkirizibwa kukola byakola yakola enkuŋŋaana n'akola ebikujjuko n'akola zi procession nga bw'ayagala nga bamukuuma omumenyi w'amateeka naye ffe abatambulira mu mateeka nga tetukkirizibwa eyo embeera tulina okulwana nayo tulabe nti evaawo n'olwekyo tujja kusituka Muhoozi atuttira eri gy'abeera naye nga naffe tugenze tetujja kutuula nti ffe tetukkirizibwa n'olwekyo tukkiriza ffe tetukkirizibwa tejja kubaawo tulina okusonga yes nagambye nti ekizibu kyetusanze lwaki tetutambudde nga bwe twandibadde tutambula ndio ekiremesezza okwegatta tulwane tutuukirize ebiruubirirwa byaffe zibadde ensonga nkulu bbiri esooka nti waliwo abakola project program ez'okututemaatemamu betulwana nabo priority yaabwe esinga emu ku zisinga obukulu kwawulayawula mu baagala enkyukakyuka. Priority nene bagiteeka mu ssente empitirivu balabe nti tukubagana tuleme kubalumba n'okweddiza obuyinza mu ggwanga lino. So eyo nsonga emu, ssente z'abalabe. Ensonga ey'okubiri kwe kulwana eno muffe okusanga nga buli omu already ayina kyayagala eri era alaba munne nti naye kyayagala kati nekibaleetera okusika omuguwa wano n'okukubagana empawa tuleme okwegatta kugenda gye tulaga olw'okwaga nannyo abaagala ebifo mu gavumenti kireeta buzibu bwa kwegatta. In fact ne mu bibiina nga totaddeewo wakati wa bibiina ne mu kibiina ekimu entalo z'owulira mu bibiina ezisinga obungi lwakuba balwana ku lw'obufo obuli muki mu gavumenti si kukyusa embeera y'eggwanga. So mu mbeera eyo at least nayagadde nze nejje mu kifaananyi bwe kityo nti oba oli awo ndwana nfuuke kino mbeere president mbeere kino nedda. So kati nagambye nti okusooka okulwana kwe tujja kulwana nga bwe kisoboka naye bwe tumala okufuna kye twagala sijja kusaba sijja kukkiriza nampa yenna omulimu mu gavumenti siri gutwala. Sibyagamba nti nja kukolako katono ngenda sijja gutwala. So abantu bangi abaagala emirimu tujja kunoonya mu baagala emirimu abasobola okukola ki okukola emirimu nga tubaliko okulaba nti bakola kye tukola ki kye twagala. How is our time? I think
about 2 questions, just 2 questions. I think
that should be the last one. Okay, there is a lady there also.
Fine. 2
quick ones.
Quick one. Make it short.
If change does not come from within, it comes from out. Follow Zanti, Mohozo, Burn, Simao, Akizao, Kumaso, Mozanti, Malo pollution. Two, Chigan Van, your free time of peers. One look of Kubakano, what is the
So okusoka muhozi yeke nyini n'abamuyambako kye bakola bakikutegeezezza nti bo standby generator oli akutte enkasi bw'abanga agitadde ono yakwata. Ekyo si kyakusoomooza ffe kyakulwanirira nkasi yaabwe ereme kukola ki ereme kutwalibwa omulala. Kye bakola tekirina kakwate konna ebyetukola. Bakugamba n'okugamba nti bayina sisitimu y'abachwezi etambula nkola yaabwe emaze emyaka 5 biki. So byebaliko si byetuliko, byebaliko byetwagala okukyusa era tujja kubikyusa. Mwami Muhoozi bw'abanga ayagala okuyamba eggwanga likyuse ekiriwo teyeeteekawo ajje tukwatire wamu tukyuse luvannyuma tulabe ekinaakola ki ekinaddako. Si kwegamba nti nze already wendi. bwe tunaasanga nti okay otuyambye ekinene gwe twagala kiva muffe kwe kukyusa ye reset gye twagala obuyinza si bo basalawo ffe tulina okukola ki okusalawo bana
sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr Besigye.
Let's keep on the same page. Copies, those who want to get it can get it from us. This crisis has been developing over time. The social, economic, political, even environmental and climate crisis that the country faces has been developing over time. What we just did in this book was to capture how it was as of 2021. And in talking about the crisis, we also said at that time what had caused the crisis, what was driving the crisis. And the fundamental cause is what we characterized as the state capture in Uganda, the capture of the state by a cabal of people using force, using arms to capture all power of state, to capture all institutions of the state. And therefore, for the population and all in the state to be just subjects, observers of those who had captured the state. And it was clear that those who had captured the state had captured all the wealth of the country. That's what capturing the state means. You capture control of the wealth. So the population is not in control of the wealth within Uganda. They capture this decision making. They are the ones who decide. They are sovereign. They are the state. And that we made it clear that those who captured the country were embodied in the family of Mr. Museveni. And that we are captives in the state of Uganda. And that those who had captured the state were using the resources of Uganda for mainly 4 or 5 purposes. First, to entrench their capture, to entrench their control, and make sure that nobody has a say. That is what they used resources primarily for. Their priorities to entrench their capture of the state. 2, to expand their power even beyond Uganda. So, entrenchment, expansion. 3, to disempower all others so that they are easily controllable. In other words, domestic entrepreneurship also to be captured. And that's why, indeed, if you look for the people who control the economy, it's not Ugandans. They pattern with some external interests in the control of the wealth of the country. Those who were Ugandan entrepreneurs were crushed. Ugandan financial institutions were crushed. There is no financial institution now that you can talk of as a Ugandan institution, save the struggling Catholic controlled bank, the Centenary Bank. All banks of Ugandans were crushed. All who had wealth, the cooperative societies that had wealth, were crushed. So to disempower all and empower themselves, that was their third priority. And it continues. Anything you get, if they hear you are getting something, they extend their hand to get it. Even taxes, now they are looking for whoever is making even the smallest thing. They want to get it. So that is their priority number 3. And together with that priority is patronage. Because they control the wealth, they become the givers. Anybody who is to get anything, it is them to give. Handouts. That was their priority number 3, disempower all and build patronage system. If you want to be a journalist who has anything, you must work with them, they give you a brown envelope. If you want to be a doctor, you must kneel down and clap your hands and say, thank you, Father, you have given me something. Patronage and disempowerment and patronage. Priority number 3. Priority number 4, control of information and propaganda. So that anybody who has to speak things they are not in support of or different views, they are either completely shut down or clouded out by their own noise and propaganda. And they have swarms of noisemakers in that regard, whether in the social media, whether in the mainstream media, whether in the Bakubiba Masimu, people who call on the radio stations, whether it is the people who are hosted by talk shows and so on. They make sure they are everywhere, clouding out any voice that shows what the real situation is. So that has been their priority, number 4. And that includes not just here, but international. You remember they were hiring people for millions of dollars, that they are public relations people. They pay them tens of millions of dollars to paint their image what it is not abroad. So that's their priority number 4. Their priority number 5 has been to make sure that nobody organizes against them. And any group that is organized, whether against them or not, that it's not harmonious, that it is divided and clashing. Because once it is organized at some stage, maybe it could pay attention to what they are doing. So they are anti-organization. Anti-organization, including what they claim to be their own organization. The NRM is not an organization. They can't allow it to be an organization, to be a strong organization, because it could then challenge them. So the people who captured the state have concentrated our resources in those 5 things. As a result, the crisis we are talking about started taking shape through the marginalization of the population. Started taking shape because they are not paying attention to health care of the people. In spite of the intensifying health challenges, go and check the budget. The budget for health is going down. I understand in the next financial year, from the framework that has just been discussed, the budget for health is going to go down about 8% of what it was. Because it's not a priority. And so you have the healthcare workers stranded. In Uganda today, a medical doctor serves between 20 to 25,000 people. One medical doctor. 20 to 25,000 people. But you heard there is no budget for medical interns. There is no budget for senior house officers, what they call senior house officers, the people who are specializing in different fields. There is no money for them. There will be no interns. And it's the interns that were running these institutions. So the healthcare system has totally collapsed as a result. You go to any healthcare institution. Recently, I had a patient in Mulago, a mother of one of our activists who needed operation. It was horrific what we went through in Mulago. To get admitted, to get a file from casualty, we paid 20,000 shillings just to get a file. And mark you, we are not short of contacts. It's not like any other person just walking off the street. To get a bed on the ward, you have to pay. Anything prescribed, you have to buy. This lady was to undergo an operation. They gave me a whole list of things to buy before she could be taken to the theater, including stitching materials, what they used to close the wound of the incision, including buying gowns for those to participate in the operation. 3 gowns we had to buy in the National Referral Hospital of Uganda. So you can imagine what is happening in the health centers, Health Center 3, Health Center 4. So the crisis has been deepening. It's not a different crisis. It is the same, only that every year it deepens. The economy getting challenges because we are extracting from the economy. We are not investing into the economy. We are extractive. Not investing in agriculture, but extracting from there. You go into any field of agriculture or livestock husbandry, and you'll see the chaos you meet there. You know? So, the economy has been, suffering as a result. They have the enclave economy here which they present. Uganda is prospering. MTN is here making money. I don't know who is making money. But what about ordinary folks? GDP, they talk about GDP. And the GDP is the money of Sudir and MTN and so on, divided amongst all these hungry mouths. See, that's what you have, So it's the crisis that we want to address that is driven by that state capture. Look, any country that does not pay attention to education is doomed. If a country does not build knowledge in its young people, it's doomed. We've talked here about the lack of investment in young people's education. That a child in Ugandan schools is provided for less than $3 a year. Less than 10,000 shillings. 10,000 shillings is less than $3 a year to build knowledge in a kid. And that kid to compete with the kid in Europe whom they spend on $10,000 a year. Compete with yours whom you spend on less than $3 a year. Who go and spend the whole day at school without eating anything. And that's why it's no wonder that they just drop out. That's why the dropout rate in primary schools is more than 70%. Because there is no purpose. They would rather go and graze goats. So the crisis in education has been intensifying. And their knee-jerk approach, we are now going to give money to scientists. That has created even greater crisis in education. Because the majority of people who run education are actually not scientists, including head teachers. Head teachers, most of the head teachers and administrators in schools are not scientists. You cannot be a headmaster earning a third of what your teacher is earning. So now we have many schools without qualified head teachers. Just the crisis intensifying. I received an SMS from a student at Makerere crying. Government-sponsored students in the universities have not been given money. Most of them all of them have to fend for themselves to get anything to eat. Those who are in paid accommodation, but government-sponsored, have been thrown out of their accommodation. And you've been hearing students killing themselves. That is the crisis. These are kids who now come and think the world has ended for them. So the crisis in education is unbelievable. Of course, everybody is dealing, I don't have even to talk about the crisis in infrastructure. Just look at the roads, I read today in one of the papers that they have released 26 billion to fix the roads in the districts and in the urban centers. 26 billion to fix the roads in the districts and in the urban centers. And I heard one of the towns is getting 12 million shillings to fix the roads. It's a joke. But that's the truth. That's the reality of what we are dealing with, And you know, I saw another one complaining that when people show the terrible condition of roads, we scare away tourists. Why do you show these pictures? They will scare away tourists. So they want tourists to come and just drown in the... We don't make roads for tourists. We make them first and foremost for ourselves. The tourists are beneficiaries of the roads we make for ourselves. But we have no roads to pass through, and we must raise our voices over this. So the infrastructure is a terrible situation, just part of that crisis of extraction, not being priorities. Just part of that. Now, what has been occupying the media lately is simply consequences of this crisis. You know, the corruption. People spend all their time talking about mabati, iron sheets. Mabati are a minuscule, insignificant part of the robbery that is going on here. Insignificant. The kind of money that is robbed. I've told you, you know, for roads, they are giving 26 billion. But supplementary going to State House, supplementary, 90 billion. Supplementary going on top of what had been given. 90 billion. But for the roads, the whole country, 26 billion. You know? So, the corruption that people are talking about, it's only because that became very visible. Mabati are visible. These, the thieves of Mabati were unwise. They took what makes noise. Mabati make a lot of noise. You know, that's why they are in trouble. And they are visible. You know, this minister who has just gone to prison, I understand he used his to roof his cattle shed. Now, people who are passing under the shade, they see Prime Minister's office. But they make a lot of noise, you know. But these are not the main thieves. They are not the main thieves. And I agree with those who are saying, don't really, we are focusing on the wrong people. If anybody should be in prison, it must be Mr. Museveni. And his cabal of thieves. You know? They are the people who should be in prison. Because they are the people who have caused all this. You know? And it goes on. You know? Before the Mabati, there was NSSF. You saw what was going on in NSSF. That meetings of the National Social Security Fund, the money of workers, meetings and decisions were being taken in Kapeka at the home of Museveni's brother, General Sare. That's where decisions on workers' money were being taken. You know? Again, and that NSSF is a share. All the money, this is what we are saying when we were fighting that people get mid-term benefits. The fight to stop the mid-term benefits was because there was no money, it's a share. The money was taken by government, that they are lending it to government. And in every year they roll over what they lent to the government and add on more. You know? So the corruption we are focusing on, yes, it is visible. And those obviously who steal small things are also thieves and should pay for their for their transgressions. But the real challenge, the real problem is what is behind this. This stealing Mabati, you know, nobody can work in today's politics without stealing. Because it starts in the elections. In Uganda, we don't have elections, we have auctions. They auction. The highest bidder is the one who goes. So, to go to an election and win, you must carry tons of money. So having won, you must start building the war chest for the next auction. And it's, as I have said, it starts with Mr. Museveni himself. Except that Mr. Museveni orders Bank of Uganda to carry bullions to his office. These Chitutus have nobody to order. So they must go away with the Mabati to give the voters in order to come. That's why they are doing that. It's all part of, and I heard Mr. Museveni condemning it as political corruption. Of course it's political corruption, but the whole system is built on political corruption. He is there because of political corruption, and that's why he can't fight it. He can't fight it. You know, this is a demonstration. These Mabatis are a demonstration of where the problem is. You can't be a head of state, president, commander in whatever, and you don't have information about who stole this. And you claim you are waiting for the courts or what? Now even the courts have worked, people are in jail, others are on bail, they are still ministers. So clearly, your ministers are just, I heard of one of our colleagues saying that they have a cabinet of monkeys which grab bananas wherever they see them. That's exactly what they are demonstrating, you know? Because how can you have from the prime minister, the speaker, vice president, deputy prime minister, minister of finance, what? Do we still have anything called government? You know? And the one who is their appointing authority, their controller, is there fidgeting. I saw him saying that those who had not used them can bring them back. So whoever steals should just, and his coach should just bring something back. Where will be the deterrence if the only action on those who steal is to be requested to bring these things back? So, ladies and gentlemen, it's this crisis. It's just growing every day. As I have said, now we have the collapse of the state, basically. Collapse of the economy, collapse of the state. Look at the local governments and urban authorities are literally closed. The local governments, all over, they are closed. Urban authorities, they are closed. Apart from those who get salaries, there is nothing going on there. And they claim, you know, government is doing well, everything is moving on. The only thing moving on is patronage, taking some little money to confuse peasants that it is parish development money. As we've said, that's not how development is done, by giving handouts. It's nonsense. But that's what is being undertaken. Of course, the crisis on the political side is now in full gear. The crisis in the political field is in full gear because everybody can see that Mr. Museveni is growing weak, and that sooner or later he will go, whether he likes or not. That is now very, very clear. And that's why I think his son is active, moving around in total violation of law, just to demonstrate the impunity, to demonstrate that they are the state, they are the law. And the country is observing, powerless about anything to do. There is an MK army, and they move with their guns and so on, and assemble people and address. And when anyone else even wants to hold an indoor meeting, like we were trying to hold prayers at Sharing Hall, then hell breaks loose. You can't even hold an indoor meeting. Or when we wanted to address the question of ECOP, the oil pipeline, then hell breaks loose. That crisis of succession is clearly playing out. Those around Museveni are worried about what happens if he doesn't wake up. And that's why there is a lot of that agitation. Their concern is to maintain the state capture. Their concern is not to change, is not to end the state capture, it is to maintain the state capture. But that is, a political crisis that we have to deal with. Now, as I pointed out, the country should focus on how to end this. This has been around for all this time. How do we end it? And that is, as we have pointed out time and time again, the reason we are. We wake up every day focused on how do we end state capture, because that is the problem. How do we end the capture of the state and have sovereignty of Ugandans rather than sovereignty of Mr. Museveni and the family limited. And the reason we engage you is that we must engage the population. Ending this will not take just leaders. It will take the people of Uganda in their wide societies that they live in. Everybody must be engaged, or most people, a critical mass of Ugandans must be engaged in order to end this. It will not be wished away. It will not be ended by these leaders or whoever leaders. Ugandans must be active in ending this. And that's why we set up the People's Front for Transition, to help our people to become focused on the problem and to deal with it. Becoming focused and dealing with it has not been easy because of what I talked about, the actions of those who don't want it to end. The propaganda, the misinformation, the division of people who are supposed to end it. It has not been easy. But thank God we have remained focused and dealing with it. And the objective of what we are doing is to have a reset of the state. There must be a complete reset. It won't be solved by, having dialogue and reforming this or reforming that or adjusting on this. There is a need for a whole reset of the state to get it out of capture, to have different owners of the state. That's what it will take. And once that reset has happened, the ownership has changed of the state, then the structuring of the state must happen, or restructuring will happen after ownership has changed. And that is why, again, we have already suggested ideas in this book, the transition agenda. What will happen in the restructuring of the state once the ownership of the state has changed? It's the restructuring of the state. But how do we change the ownership? You can put it down there. The ownership of the state, again, at the risk of sounding quite repetitive, the ownership of the state, it is our contention, will be achieved through a fight, not through the auctions or elections that are being talked about. The people of Uganda must fight for their ownership of the state. Just like you hear in criminal cases, the state versus Besigye, when I am the accused, it must be the people of Uganda versus the mafia that captured the state. The people must fight for their ownership. Nobody will fight for their ownership. They must fight for their ownership. So our role is mainly twofold. We have not been very successful in those roles for a number of challenges, but they remain our roles. The first one is to awaken those people who must take back their state. Conscientize them, get them to understand the dynamics. Mobilize them. And that's where we are going to put full throttle going forwards. Mobilization of the country. Mobilizing them not to vote, but mobilizing them to take action, to fight for their ownership. Two, for them to take their ownership, they must be organized. And we, in the mobilization we are taking, this is already going on. Fortunately, organization doesn't have to be visible. even when we have not been visible, a lot of work has been going on, organizing. The organization for struggle which we are engaged in, different from the organization for election, the organization for struggle is non-partisan and must aim at including everybody. And that's why I'm sure you've been seeing us engaging other formations, other parties, so that we can have a strong, broad-based front that includes all formations of our society, including non-government organizations, people who are not in the politics. They must take part also. The Journalists Association, fortunately they are now paper spraying you, so you have a direct cause to fight for your own rights. So, organization. Why has organization not been successful up to now? Partly, it is the disorganization that is engineered from outside, but partly, it is our own faults. It is people who seek to gain positions, to gain privileges, to gain all kinds of things through the struggle itself. And once that happens, then there is rivalry. And once you are rivals, you will never fight. You will never fight. And so, in fact, because of that, rivalry, people aiming at all kinds of things and failing to look at what is happening today, failing to divorce what must be done in the period of struggle from what must be done in the period after struggle, which have been our challenges. I have personally been taking account of all this and my own role in it. And, you know, I resigned from being a leader of a political party to focus on how to change the country, which requires non-partisan participation of everybody. But still, everybody looks at me in the lens of FDC. Everybody looks at me in the lens of seeking leadership. And on this matter, I have not consulted any of my colleagues, but I would like to tell the country that I made a personal decision arising out of all this, that not only will I focus the remaining short period of my life on the struggle, but when the struggle succeeds, and I believe it is soon, because, yes, because I've told you we are now dealing with a collapsed state. What we are dealing with is a collapsed state. Even the police that has been hunting us, you go, they have no fuel, they have no paper to write on if you come to complain. It's just it's a share. It's a share of a state. And I believe we can push it down. But my personal decision is that once we bring down the regime that captured our state, I will not seek any leadership position myself. I will not accept any leadership position myself. Hopefully it helps to understand that there is a separation between struggle for the common good separate from struggle for personal positions or whatever. I've never been in the struggle for a personal position myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't have left my hospital profession. But now you hear, even when whatever you are doing, you say, this one wants to be this, wants to be that. I don't want to be anything. But I will not leave the struggle. I will, in fact, intensify whatever I need to do as a person. And they should stand warned, because I am soon to be 67 years. The book of Proverbs in the Bible gives us the age of 70 as our life. So I have 3 years. They are going to face these 3 years with me. Yes. We cannot continue living in a country of being hostages, being captives. And it's possible to change this situation. So, we are busy in meetings to structure our specific actions. As PFT first, even after this presser, we are going back to our meeting. You found us in a meeting, we are going back to our meeting. To structure how we move. But secondly, apart from being PFT, we are busy talking to all the other actors. You may have seen over the weekend, I had a meeting with the leaders of NUP, and those meetings are continuing. We are talking to all the other parties as usual. And the direction is mobilization. We cannot allow General Muhoozi that he's the only one who can talk to Ugandans, that others have no right. He will kill us trying to talk to our people. Mobilization, organization, action is where we are going. We have said many times that it is very easy for Ugandans to shut down the state. And you won't be heard unless you do so. You can see Kenyans even just threatening. They said, we shall take action Tuesday and Thursday. They took action only once. The government said, wait a moment, let's talk. Nobody will be heard unless you take action. So, especially the young people, because I keep on hearing young people say, this is our generation. It's your generation to do what if you cannot take action? Otherwise, I should not be even here at 67 fighting. So young people, let's go. Let's go. That is all now. The other thing which has been obviously in the media during this time, especially when I was away, was the question of homosexuality. And not only was it in the media, but it also focused on me as a person, on my family, and there has been a lot of mobilization around it. In fact, the country almost became hysterical about it, which rather surprised me that, you know, they are not talking about. It's okay to focus on it, and I will also talk about it. But to hear nobody talking about this terrible crisis, you know, in the churches, in the mosques, what? It's only homosexuality, not the death of our children, not the lack of knowledge of our children, not the health crisis that has engulfed the whole country, not the infrastructure that is broken, not what, but there has been, you know, a lot of talk about homosexuality. It's an important thing. We must talk about it. But to talk about it to the exclusion of others rather, you know, shocked me. So this is a matter that, because especially it has sucked me and my family into it directly, it is a matter that I feel we must comprehensively address. And for that reason, we are not going to address it at this presser to mix it with all this. It will be addressed at its own specific presser to deal with this matter, which obviously has become a very big concern for the country. We shall address it directly and comprehensively in all its dimensions. And, you know, of course, the law that was passed, I don't know where it is. It's not the first time that the law is being passed. Even in 2014, a law was passed after, again, a lot of mobilization, and the law was signed with a lot of pomp and publicity. Then it was struck down and there was quiet. I don't know where those who had proposed the law went. It was quiet. And now it has, there is another area of concern. So we shall address this very, very comprehensively, very directly in the next presser, specifically for this matter. And on that, I think that ends what we intended to say. Yeah, so maybe since there is always What's the time? Oh, so I have talked for rather too long, but there were many issues. I pray that you translate for us in Uganda.
What actually is summary, a little summary, in about 10 minutes. Yeah. There's a proposal if they can just ask a question which they wanted to from Uganda so that we handle Uganda.
In that way.
I think that would work so that we don't need to explain.
The suggestion is that those who want a Luganda element ask a question so that I address whatever their specific interest
It's okay?
is rather than talking generally.
And all should we first take questions?
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political.
Your name and media house?
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr Besigye Mu.
Let's keep on the